Today's webinar, we are going to talk about building a technology strategy for your business. Really excited about this topic and really excited about the collaboration that we have between goVirtualOffice and WorkHero, two companies that really know a lot about technology and are going to share a lot of practical insights to help you build a technology strategy for your business. My name is Liz Brigson, and it's great to be here as your host. I always learn a lot from these webinars too, and I hope you're ready with your notes to just take some notes and think about your top 3 takeaways that you can put into practice for your business after the webinar today. We also want to help answer your questions. If you have questions, comments, maybe some experiences or feedback that you'd like to share, please go ahead and use the questions box to communicate with us. And just to get us started, you can go ahead and find the questions box that's at the upper right-hand corner of the GoToWebinar control panel and go ahead and just say hi. Let us know where you're joining from and what you're most looking forward to about the program today. You can download the presentation slides from the GoToWebinar control panel. We'll also make them available to you through your in-course dashboard. Similarly, your CPE certificate, for those who qualify, that will populate to your in-course dashboard as well. Today's program will run about an hour. You'll want to join us for at least 50 minutes, hopefully the whole time. We will launch 6 polling questions. You'll want to answer at least 3, but hopefully all 6, and you'll be able to qualify for CPE credit. And again, access your CPE certificate from your in-course dashboard. If you're on LinkedIn, I would highly recommend connecting with WorkHero, connecting with goVirtualOffice and our speakers today. This is a great way to build your professional network and just build your Rolodex, your present day modern LinkedIn Rolodex of professionals who are great resources and consultants and advisors who can help you do what we're going to talk about today, which is building your technology strategy. I want to share a little bit with you about the companies. If you've joined us before for a webinar with goVirtualOffice or WorkHero, welcome back. And if you're new here today, I just want to share a little bit about each of these companies. goVirtualOffice is an award-winning NetSuite provider, and they help companies enhance productivity, improve efficiency, and grow profits. And you can do this by unifying and simplifying and automating your business processes. So that's a big focus of what we're going to talk about today. And WorkHero, based out of England, we're super thrilled to be learning about WorkHero solutions and how they enable this. They are an intelligent document management solution. They bring together all documents. So if you have documents that are scattered in different places like chat threads, emails, contracts, they bring this all together into smarter workflows. It operates with tags, which makes it much easier to find the documents, reduces duplication. And then they also have some really helpful features such as e-signatures and co-authoring documents. So this is a really leading edge solution, and goVirtualOffice and WorkHero work together, and we're really thankful that goVirtualOffice made the introduction and that they're making webinars today available. I'd like to introduce to you our speakers. We have Andy Zinkel, who's a partner and director of ERP solutions with goVirtualOffice. We have Tila Holloway, who is an implementation consultant with goVirtualOffice. And we have Chris Muir, who is the vice president of sales at WorkHero. So Andy, Tila, Chris, thank you so much for being with us today. Really excited about the program. And Tila, I'll go ahead and pass things off to you.
Thank you, Liz. So we will move on here. So today's agenda, we're going to cover a few things as far as our strategy roadmap, why your strategy matters, the centralized core ERP system, technology investments, the AI wave, the cybersecurity workforce enablement strategic approach. We'll get to some of our customer success stories, and hopefully if we have some time at the end, we'll be able to do a little bit of Q&A. So we're going to take just a little bit of time here. We're going to stop for our first poll question.
That sounds great. We'll go ahead and launch this first one straight out of the gate. Which of the following best represents how your organization conducts business? So we'd love to know what industry you operate in. Of course, we have 4 here represented: manufacturing, wholesale distribution, retail, including e-commerce and business services. We know that's not every single industry. So if you select other, we would love to hear from you. Please go ahead and let us know what other means to you and what other represents. So Jordan joined us and says construction. Yekaterina, higher education. Mark, also higher education. James says operate in the mental health industry, so healthcare. Wonderful. Thank you for letting us know that. And we see responses come in. We have about 96% of responses from the audience. So we'll close the poll, take a look at everyone who's with us today. Susan wrote in to say financial services. So thanks, everyone. Let's take a quick look. So of the industries listed, business services is represented most predominantly, and then other, thanks for writing in, manufacturing, and we also have retail and wholesale distribution represented just by a few folks. So thanks for letting us know that.
All right, so we're going to jump right in. So the moment you guys have all been waiting for, the strategy roadmap. So from your perspective, Andy, what key do you think is for just that overall statement, and what tools and approaches that companies are going to look for to align that day-to-day execution to reach those long-term goals?
Yeah, thanks, Tila. So this slide actually really lays things out pretty nicely, I feel like, because at the core, you have to look at who you are as a business. Everything you do, technology or otherwise, really should align with your company vision, your culture, and so on. So you want to look at your overarching goals as an organization. Are you a small family business just trying to make a decent living? Or maybe you're a recent startup that has aspirations growing into a much larger business. Or maybe you're a large enterprise that's been around for 100 years and knows that it needs to adjust to changing times and keep pace with the world going around. Each of those have vastly different goals and objectives as organizations. So there's not a one size fits all technology strategy. In addition to your core beliefs and goals, you'll probably want to think about where your company is going over the next, say, 5 to 10 years. Are you planning to expand physically into new locations? Are you looking to branch out into the world of e-com? Are you planning to grow through acquisition and mergers? Are you planning to maybe expand product lines? Are you looking to modernize your manufacturing operations? Each of these things can drive what technology needs that you'll have or should prioritize. Then think about the specifics of the technology that you'll need to implement. Think about how you'll manage the transformation. You need to solicit involvement from people in your organization, people that can help clearly identify the requirements of the technology, help you go through the selection process, and then ultimately support the implementation of each piece of technology that you need. In addition to people, you want to have a tactical approach in mind. For example, in our businesses, as we manage our initiatives, we use tools like cases and projects within our own ERP. But in addition to that, we look at things like Trello boards or Smart Sheets or other complementary platforms like that. These things can help manage the progress of each initiative, track statuses, the budget, assign responsibilities for those people that are involved in the project, and so on. And then once you have that foundation in place, it's time to look at what the actual technology is that you need to incorporate into your business. So based on whatever evaluation you've done in your business and your strategies, you should have a pretty good idea what technology you need at that point. It might be a new ERP, maybe it's a new e-commerce platform, maybe it's new payroll software, warehouse management, transportation management, whatever the case may be. Whatever that is, you can then dive into the process of selection and implementation.
Chris, do you have anything you'd like to add on that?
Yeah, I think this for me, this slide's great because it really emphasizes the importance of how much you have to think about a strategy when it comes to the technology for a business. There's a couple of key things that I think are really important to what I've seen dealing with companies that have gone through digital transformation on a number of occasions. The first thing is that to emphasize Andy's point, understanding the why of what you're doing and how you're going to do it is really important. Often companies think about changing technology because they because they've had a trigger event, might be a new senior person coming onto the team, or it could be as something to do with a merger or acquisition, or a desire to move into a new territory or different product sector. But in reality, those don't define a strategy. They just are reasons to do something that still have to be well thought out and managed. And then the second aspect that falls really into that tactical approach is the people bit. For me, is really important, because often these activities or these transformation projects can be time consuming and can have a big impact on the business. And we often ask people to manage and run them alongside their day-to-day job, which can be very, very difficult to do. So really understanding the impact it's going to have on people in terms of running the project, but also the impact it's going to have on people in their day-to-day jobs when it's done, and making sure that the change management side of things is thought about is really important.
So this statistic is based on a recent widely cited industry report that currently 91% of organizations are undergoing digital transformation. So this is just kind of an interesting statistic that's out there. But of that 91%, we have 30% of those organizations that succeed. Andy, what do you think are the causes of the low success rate of that 91%?
Yeah, I think part of it is what Chris was touching on, the people, right? Making sure that you have the right people in place. We see that see that a lot. Everybody has a day job, right? Everybody's got their 40-hour week that they're already doing, and then you're going to throw this huge project on top of them. That can cause challenges. And you begin a little bit of a tug of war. What things should I focus on? Should I focus on this new technology project that we've got going on, or should I focus on my day job? And the reality is you have to do both, right? So finding that balance can be a difficult thing with a lot of organizations. The other thing that comes to mind for me is just aligning with your company strategy. What are your goals, and really getting people aligned on the front end with what those goals and initiatives are. What do you want to accomplish as a part of whatever transformation you're going through? Again, there can be a bit of a tug of war, because you may have operation folks that want certain things to be accomplished, and then you have finance people that want something else accomplished, and they can butt heads, right? And so you want to make sure you get everybody aligned and get clear definition on what the goals are of the initiative before you even really enter the selection process. You need to define what your requirements are, what you want the results to be before you go into the selection process, and then ultimately the implementation process.
Chris, do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I think I just want to emphasize on Andy's last point there. And from a very personal and recent experience, actually internally, we as an organisation have recently moved our CRM from one provider to another, and in doing so, we were under quite a tight deadline because of the need to come off the old solution before the renewal was due. So there was obviously a plan in place to do that, but the operations team really didn't plan out and discuss with the other parts of the business what the right data migration practice was going to be in our case. So we've ended up with a whole load of really unorganized and unstructured and unconsidered data into a new system that is causing us some problems. So that point around really planning it and understanding what different departments and different bits of the organization need to get out of a new solution is absolutely key. The key thing that I've seen through a lot of organizations doing this and where they get it wrong, and I think it's fascinating that that so many businesses don't get this right, and I think we as providers of software have to take some responsibility for that. But one thing I've noticed or seen quite a lot is organizations not really thinking about those 3, 4, maybe 5 things that are core to why they're doing it and what they want to get out of it, and driving that through the whole process, and therefore measuring the success of the project based on those outcomes. And I think if you can really define what the goals of the strategy are, then you can measure them and understand if they're going to be successful or not. And as you're going through the project, if they're not looking like they're going to be successful, then you can understand or try to understand why that is, and correct those mistakes or those errors that have come along the way.
I would just add to, Chris, you said something that triggered a thought. Don't bite off more than you can chew. A big thing that we preach at GVO is crawl, walk, run, that philosophy. I can remember I had a client a few years ago that purchased NetSuite from us. We worked on their implementation with them, initially planning to have them live in about 9 months. Going in, we had an impression of what we thought the project should look like, and we thought, okay, we can get this done in 9 months, which, by the way, is actually longer than what we typically see with a lot of our implementations. But this was a little larger client, had a little bit more going on. 3 years later, they killed the project, and it never went live. They were never aligned internally as a company. Along the way, they threw the kitchen sink at the project, right? They wanted to get everything in, and essentially try and kind of rebuild what their old system was, so to speak. They never really got aligned internally to figure out what they really needed to get them off the ground. And I would strongly suggest that figure out what you need to get off the ground, not necessarily everything. The reality is technology evolves. It's changing so rapidly that what you think you might need right now may not actually be what you need by the time you even get live with whatever software you would implement. So take it in bite-sized chunks, figure out what's absolutely necessary, and then I always say that an ERP is a living, breathing thing. If we deal in ERP, obviously there's other technology, but an ERP is a living, breathing thing. And it needs to be nurtured, it needs to be fed, and so on. And so, you have to, yes, you've got to get live, but then you've got to be willing to step through enhancements and evolve as you go, as opposed to try and do the whole thing all in one shot.
I agree, Andy. Which that brings us to our next poll question.
Very good. We'll go ahead and launch our second polling question. And here's the polling question. What are your primary business goals for the next 12 to 24 months? So go ahead and let us know, is that scaling operations to support growth, improving your operational efficiency and reducing costs, maybe more focused on the customer experience, enhancing the customer experience through better technology, helping your team streamline financial management and reporting, or other. If you selected other, we'd love to hear from you to know your primary business goal. So go ahead and write in. Let us know that in the questions box. And really some impressive and surprising statistics that we just covered around the number of organizations that are undergoing digital transformation, but the percentage of those companies who are succeeding. And just hearing about what it takes to have that clear and aligned tech strategy, really helpful to reflect on that. And I'm seeing some comments come in from the audience here. Thanks, Susan, for writing in. Susan says that their team's primary business goals are meeting regulatory requirements for data security. So that's something maybe we'll have a chance to touch on too. That kind of goes hand in hand with the tech strategy. And thanks everyone for getting your responses in. We got great response right here, and looks like the leading response is improving operational efficiency, followed by scaling to support growth. Actually, no, I missed the streamlining financial management reporting. So definitely 3 standouts here, and they all work together. So thanks everyone for letting us know where you're at there. And we're back to your slides now.
Great. So moving forward in technology, it could mean having that centralized ERP like what GVO does implement, ensuring that all of those departments are working together in that unified platform. Andy, what are some of those biggest shifts that you have seen when a company does move forward with a centralized ERP?
Yeah, I think it's connecting systems as much as anything. A lot of our implementations, they're coming off of multiple systems that really aren't connected. And for us, that we deal in ERP, and ERP tends to be the core of your tech stack. It's the centralized hub for all of your systems. And in most cases, it'll serve as your single source of truth. And then there's other systems that may be the source of truth for a given piece, but it still feeds into the ERP, and you can get that information through your ERP. But then your ERP can hit on some of those things, especially that were mentioned in the poll, right? The increasing operational efficiencies. You can do a lot there. You can get your financial data and operational data too. I know that the poll focused on financial reporting, but it's operational reporting plays into that as well. But really getting all of that information into a centralized place is really valuable. But then connecting in to those other systems, whether it's a website, an Amazon store, a separate CRM system, payroll, whatever the case may be. Those integrations will help the data flow seamlessly and get things all kind of in one central repository. So yeah, you'll want your ERP or whatever system. I know I heard some other industries in the first poll that maybe it's not an ERP specifically that you're using, but you do want a piece of software that can serve as that central hub, and have that piece be what covers the bulk of your business operations, your business needs, and then pull in other systems that are tailored to do very specific things very well, but keep them all connected.
Chris, are there any of those shifts that you would like to add to that?
Yeah, I think I would emphasize the stuff that you've talked about, and that as the 10 years or so that I've been involved in this industry, that shift to having a solution that really pulls the business together is the kind of the glue that binds everything and allows the different departments to collaborate better, work more closely together, be looking at the same information at the same time is absolutely key. I think the broad industry of ERP has moved more and more towards a kind of a approach where more and more of the systems are wrapped into that centralized conduit of a system, and along with the ability to appropriately connect to the other solutions, like a solution like Workero, for example, to make the ERP even more and more powerful. And it just emphasizes the need to get the decision on the right ERP and the implementation and delivery of it even more than it might have done in the past, because it is such a big element to a business.
Chris, how do we ensure that investment drives the meaningful transformation instead of just adding more complexity?
Yeah, that's I guess that's the $1 million, but maybe it's the $1 trillion question based on this statistic. I think a lot of what we've talked about, I think the basics of making sure that you're understanding as a business why you're doing what you're doing, and then finding the right solution with the help of people who know what they're talking about. I think in today's world, there is a shift in terms of how people buy solutions, and more people are doing a lot more research before they talk to companies who might supply software. And whilst I think that's welcome and the technology or the information exists to do that, I think I do find it a little bit interesting that actually you have a bunch of people like you guys who are experts at helping people understand how to be successful in spending all of this money that people spend, but potential buyers of the solution might not actually engage with you until they're 60% of having made the decision. And I think in that case, you're missing out on a huge amount of embedded knowledge and advice that can make the whole process easier. Clearly, in this day and age that we live in, if you're not on a cloud solution, you're probably not in the right solution. That should be a given, but it still does happen. And then just really making sure that internally as an organization, once you've made the decision on what your digital transformation looks like, that it's connected within the business, that there's the right communication with the right people. I remember talking to a company many years ago who were just about to go live with NetSuite, and one of the key people in their finance team hadn't even switched it on and looked at it because he was scared of what he would find, because he'd been in the old system for 25 years and no one had actually bothered to get him involved in the process of implementation and change management. And there was no way they could go live without this guy being, fully embedded in the system. So it pushed their whole process back by at least a couple of months. And those little things actually make a big difference when it comes to understanding how these things can be successful.
I think
How
looking
about
at
you,
this
Andy?
slide, Tila, it's interesting. The word that stands out to me is investment, right? Technology is an investment. And I guess I would encourage the audience to consider it to be an investment rather than an expense. If you're looking at it as an expense, I feel like you're probably looking at it the wrong way. It's technology transformation. It's a long-term strategy. It's not a one-time event. You don't just buy a piece of software and you're done. That maybe was how it was done 20 or 30 years ago, but in today's day and age, with as fast as things are moving, it's not that way. Technology is ever changing. Businesses are changing even more and more rapidly than they did in the past as well. And so you have to have a strategy that allows you to evolve as a business, have the technology that can evolve along with it, and that helps allow for that adoption to be successful. You have to consider it more of a marathon than a sprint. And if you do that, you'll actually see the ROI on it much quicker. If you see the price tag and you think there's this huge expense and you focus on that, it can be a detriment, and you'll have a difficult time seeing that ROI.
And I like the ROI versus the cost of doing nothing. I think this is a great time to think about that.
Yeah,
Which
I
brings,
think, sorry, I just had another thought on that to the point about ROI, and again, something I've seen quite a lot and encouraged, and it's very much to your point, Andy, the view of this as an expense rather than an investment. I think if you, as part of the process of deciding what solution you want, two things are really important to me. One is that you have to plan that you're not just going to lift and shift your existing process into a shiny new system, because you won't get the benefit out of the new system if you do that. So you have to be prepared to change and look at how your processes might be modernized or or be adapted as you plan that. And the second thing is, think about what return on investment you expect to get before you acquire the solution, and measure that through the process, because that will drive you making sure that you are getting that as much as you possibly can.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'm glad you said that, because as you were talking, I was thinking back on 10 minutes ago or so, you talked about setting goals, right? And having those milestones and such. That's a lot of where you can see that ROI when you set those goals, figure out what it is that you want the software to accomplish. Then, 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 18 months down the road, you can go back and look at, what have we accomplished as a result of whatever transformation we went through.
Yeah, definitely.
That brings us to our third polling question.
All right, that sounds good. We'll go ahead and launch that third polling question. And this question asks about the challenges that you're currently facing with your technology stack. So this next polling question is open and interested to know if it's that lack of integration, maybe having outdated or inefficient processes, limited visibility, difficulty scaling technology, or other. And again, if you respond other, please feel free to write in and let us know the challenges that are unique to you that you're facing, so we can address them. But certainly these are very common, the response choices here: that lack of integration, outdated processes. We really have to get the processes right before we can match up technology to the processes. And visibility, that's something that we've talked a lot about today, and I know that's something both of your companies integrate with NetSuite, and that's something that NetSuite believes very strongly, that with unified information, every business can achieve their vision. Great. Well, we have a very responsive audience. Thanks everyone for clicking in. I'll go ahead and share those results. So here we have really this top answer around integration is a top challenge faced by almost half of our group. So certainly a standout there. As I close the poll, what feedback do you all have on that?
Yeah, I guess
Yeah,
I'm
I
not
think.
overly surprised. Yeah, go ahead, Chris.
No, you go ahead. I was probably going to say exactly the same thing. So.
Yeah, no, I'm not surprised, especially since we just talked about integrations here a minute ago too. It's probably top of mind as you look at that poll, but it's for us ERP where we live and breathe. It comes down to two things typically. It's data accessibility and it's operational efficiencies. Those are typically the two main things that people are looking to accomplish, and that seems to align there. That fragmented systems prevent you from getting good data. So if things are fully connected, that'll get you what you need, and you can make those good, sound business decisions with that good data.
Definitely. And a good segue to AI too, because that integration kind of is a big part of what effective AI needs to have data and systems that it can easily access.
Yeah, and we're moving into that world of AI, and it's really no longer experimental, and it's really no longer just helping us touch up our emails to make them a little more professional, or making our kids think that we're a little smarter at their algebra lessons. Andy, where do you see AI kind of start to show a little more measurable difference within business?
Yeah, I think it points to operational efficiency as much as anything. It making things easier and faster. I mean, you touched on being able to do emails faster or draft documents faster. Things like that always happen. There's things like document recognition, right? There's some systems have if you have expense reports, you take a client out to dinner, you can literally snap a picture of the receipt and it will read the information on the receipt and create the expense report for you, right? There's things like that out there. Same thing with AP bills. If you're a finance person, there's all kinds of those things that are really evolving and doing so very, very quickly, it seems. Some of those things were taking place 3 or 4 years ago a little bit, and people didn't use the term AI. Now AI is very much a buzzword. You hear it everywhere you go, but people do it in context to things like Chat GPT and Copilot and so on. And yeah, there are those things, but there's so much more to it. There's now interactive assistants that we're seeing launched that allow things to be done much faster. You don't have to wait for a human being. Old-fashioned people, I mean, there's times I'd rather talk to a person, right? But there's also times it's really efficient. Like I had a situation not long ago, has nothing to do with ERP, but I was trying to cancel a subscription of something that I had, and got online and had a chat with a chat bot. Ended up not canceling my subscription because they offered me a better deal, and AI was able to actually offer me the better deal without me having to actually talk to a human being. So there's so much out there that can be done. I know, Chris, you guys at WorkEuro, as a software publisher, obviously have to be, very cognizant of what's out there with AI, and certainly are using some tools. I'm sure you have even more that you can share than what I have.
Yeah, I think it's such a fast moving area that I think the idea that I think maybe a year, maybe even 2 years ago, AI was something that was being talked about, but we didn't really know how it was going to impact us or what it was going to change, has moved on significantly from that. And now, if AI is not a major part of what people like us do from a development perspective, then we're going to be left behind. We one of the big elements of what we as that we do is document collaboration and document management, and we are already seeing ChatGPT being able to do some of the, in a rudimentary way, do some of the things that we take for granted in our software, because you can ask it to go and do things. Now, it might have to be that it's not the basic version of ChatGPT, but it's giving an insight into how structured this is going to become, but at the same time being very conscious that there's not a cost to AI, but there's certainly some risks or aspects of it that you have to be aware of when you're using it. So we see, from a customer perspective, we think about how we can make AI relevant to what we're doing, so you're not doing it just for the sake of using it. So the kind of examples you talked about make absolute sense. So in our instance, or our case, that would be AI suggesting where a document might get filed through reading the document and seeing what's on it. It might be the ability to use AI to go and find some information that might make sense, or automatically file an email in a document management system. Those are all things that are going to save time and effort, but ultimately make the whole process a lot smoother. And that development is just going to continue and continue and continue. Now, I think in the last 3 months, I've known of 4 or 5 new tools that our teams are looking at using and trying to embed into our solution, because people are coming up with new things all the time. How it affects us on our day-to-day life, and the example you gave is great. Actually, we had an example internally which scared me a little bit, in that we asked AI to go and do some research on how WorkHero can benefit companies that use NetSuite and Salesforce together. And one of the outputs it delivered was an 8-minute podcast. We hadn't asked it to do that, but it produced an 8-minute podcast that we could have launched if we'd wanted to. And the content was basically 2 people having a conversation like the 3 of us are having a conversation today. It blew my mind when I heard it. It was unbelievable.
That's cool. That's actually a neat idea. And not even that it just created it, but you didn't even think to maybe do a podcast, right? Just the fact that AI took it upon itself to suggest, hey, maybe you do this in addition to just here's the information, right? That's
Absolutely.
actually really interesting.
I know we are going to be running a little short on time, so I might be pushing you guys a little bit here. So I'm going to put this statistic up here for everyone just to kind of take in a little bit and think about that, just showing how critical that AI is and is going to be and becoming shaping the future of business, and that 92% of organizations are already planning to invest in that AI technology. And I know that this one right here is really important to both Chris and Andy. So when it comes to this data and AI, I'm just going to kind of open the floor to both of you to jump on this one, that 77% are exploring how AI can support the business. And we kind of already touched on this in the couple previous slides that you guys were talking about the different ways that the businesses were exploring it.
Yeah, I think.
Sorry, go ahead, Chris.
No, sorry, Andy. I was going to just mention, from a personal experience in our business, I talked about how AI is impacting what we do from a development perspective, but actually every part of our business is looking at AI. Every individual department is spending time on a weekly basis looking at the tools that are available to us to make ourselves more efficient. And we've kind of set some internal targets around that. We've sort of said to each department, go and find some tools that will allow us to be X amount more efficient without having to increase workload. And AI is the real major way of doing that. So whether that is the expense solution, like you mentioned, which we use internally, or the kind of marketing automation tools that are available, or the sales activity that we can do from using AI tools, or even the support piece, like you mentioned, the bot that got you a better deal on your subscription. Well, those things are really impacting our business across every aspect of it. And I've spoken to customers who are doing exactly the same thing, that they're setting a strategy internally that says, we need to use AI 25% more in the next 12 months, or 30% more in the next 12 months. It's got to the point now that if you don't have that as part of your strategy, the likelihood is you'll be left behind by your competitors.
I know I can say something to get both of you going just a little bit, though. That AI is only as good as the data that it's provided.
You beat me to it, Tila. That was one of the comments I was gonna say is, and I tell you what, that comment alone, I've been hearing more and more, and I've been hearing it from people of significance. I've heard it from the CEO of NetSuite. I've heard it from the CEO at Acumatica, both within the last 30 days, in speeches that they've given. So that is very much a thing. As I look back at GVO and how we started to adopt AI a couple of years ago, we did so very carefully, because there's some AI tools out there that are great, but they're not incredibly secure, right? So we didn't want to expose any client sensitive data or information that could get out there into the world, right? That anybody could just grab. And I've been at seminars where I've heard stories of things like that have happened, that are not good. So we stepped through it very, very carefully, and we've actually just recently announced internally that we're going to open up certain AI platforms to our entire staff. Prior to that, we were keeping it just to management because we wanted to make sure that it was safe and secure before we sent it out. But yeah, you bring up, it's a really good point, Tila, that data is key. AI is wonderful, but it's only as good as the data that you provide to it to analyze and work with.
49% of businesses are already using it within their businesses. And the form of, we've already talked about automated invoicing. As you mentioned, Andy, the powered AI chat, even in the marketing. What is preventing other businesses, do you think, from adding the technology to build the foundation to keep growing their businesses and using these tools?
Uncertainty. It's new, it's scary, and kind of what I mentioned too, the security around it. There's, every business has sensitive information, and you've got to be careful where it's going. That would be my sense. At least that was our experience. We wanted to be very careful because we did not want information getting out that shouldn't be. It's a trust thing, probably, as much as anything.
I think it's also, even if you take it a layer down from that, it can be uncertainty and fear at the individual level. So we have some people in our organization that aren't particularly tech savvy, and they just don't know where to start with AI, right? They just don't have a clue. They hear all the noise about it, and the noise can become overwhelming to some extent, and they decide that the best and safest route for them is not to bother. So I think there's there's an education that needs to happen, I think, in some organizations to make it viable and usable.
Well, that brings us to our poll question number 4.
Very good. We'll go ahead and launch the 4th polling question. What are the key factors you consider when selecting a new ERP system or a solution? Wow, I saw some folks click in for cost and ROI very quickly. Now we're seeing it balance out a bit with the ease of integration with existing systems, scalability, user friendliness, along with the training and support and other. While the responses come in here, in Corsa, it's all about learning and development. And I always think it's important to highlight that training support is such a key piece of upskilling your workforce. And as you're thinking about what solutions to put in place and who to work with, really look for vendors like goVirtualOffice, like WorkHero, who have the team that can help you think from the beginning to start with your data, to get the good processes and really help to be advisors to your team, because that is part of learning, that's part of development, that's part of training. Sometimes it's easy to overlook the people who are in your network who are helping you with your systems that also are helping to train your team and upskill your team. I'll close the poll and we'll take a look here. Cost and ROI did end up as the top response, along with the ease of integration. But we definitely have a good group here who are looking for that user friendliness and training support too, closely followed by scalability and growth. These are all really important factors to consider.
So that's going to move us on to our cybersecurity. And with cybercrime risk skyrocketing, really no business is too small. And small and mid-sized businesses, the cold truth is that they're just as likely to have an attack. And so that can mean tomorrow all of your data could be gone. And what would you do if you turned around and the last 2 years of your data is just gone? So, Andy, how do you encourage companies to prioritize that cybersecurity effectively?
Yeah, I don't claim to be a cybersecurity expert by any means, but I do understand its importance. And like you said, Tila, nobody's immune to it. So as you proceed down your technology journey, be sure to, pull in the appropriate resources that can help you make the right decisions to fit your business when it comes to security. Consider whether your tech stack is going to be on premise or whether it's going to be in the cloud, what you can control with that. Think about things like multi-factor authentication, single sign-on, remote access. It can be easy to focus on the sales and operations of your business because they tend to have the biggest positive impact in your business, but don't forget to guard against the, things like cyber attacks that could negatively impact your business.
Chris, I know this is an important topic to you as well.
Yeah, I think it's difficult, right? Because the cost can be prohibitive, or can at least be scary especially for smaller businesses, or you might not have the expertise internally to figure out how to do this. So again, it's really key that you find the right support to give the right sort of advice to make this happen. And I think it ties into the conversation about AI, because again, AI and cybersecurity kind of go hand in hand to some extent in terms of data getting out of your solution. It really is absolutely key.
So that's going to bring us to our workforce enablement. And again, we are kind of getting close on time here. So Chris, what do you find that is the most effective way that you've seen organizations enable their workforce and drive that adoption when they are rolling out the new technologies and processes?
So I think it starts with making sure that the right people have been involved in the process from the start, and it's not a siloed decision-making process. And then once the selection is done, obviously choosing a solution that is going to benefit the business, is easy to use, is all the things that we want it to be in terms of accessibility, whether that be through through the cloud or from different types of devices. All of that's important. But then really making sure that, as I alluded to with the example I gave earlier of the person that hadn't seen NetSuite, making sure that change management and user adoption is part of the absolute implementation process, and kind of making people aware of what's coming rather than waiting to the very end. If you wait to the point where you're starting to train people, it's probably too late. They're probably too far behind. So communication is absolutely key all the way through the process of the delivery of a new kind of solution for a business.
Andy, do you have anything to add to that?
Yeah, I think Chris hit it really well. I think change management needs to start early, like very, very early in the process, much earlier than you would ever anticipate. You've got to start it early. Get everybody engaged and excited about the change early on. That makes everything later on much easier. It makes the training much easier. Obviously, whatever system you're choosing, you want to make it user friendly. Chris, you mentioned you have some people on your staff that aren't very tech savvy, right? Every organization has that. So make sure that whatever system you're putting in place is user friendly. And as you're implementing things, try not to take a step backwards, right? There may be a small step backward in a certain area that has a longer gain in, for the organization. But you don't want to be taking steps backwards. That's going to hurt your adoption. And then when it comes to training, get your people hands-on. Like don't just watch how-to videos and such. Get your hands dirty. Get in there and actually test things out and make sure things are going to work for you. And one final comment I guess I would say is, two. Sorry. Don't get caught up with documentation. It can be easy to say, oh, I need everything documented. Things are going to change so rapidly that by the time you have the document in place, things might have changed and evolved. So do more short videos as opposed to lengthy documents to manage things. And after you go live, have a mechanism for people to give feedback. Whether that's in the system or outside the system doesn't matter, but have a mechanism that people can provide some feedback so that you know what's working and what's not working and you can adjust.
That's great suggestions. That brings us to our poll question number 5.
Sounds good. Let's go ahead and take that 5th polling question. We do have 5 and 6 left for polling questions. Number 5, what are the key factors you consider when selecting a new ERP system or solution? This is like the lightning round. We got 91% of responses in. Great job. Let's take, and look at that. Oh, this is the last poll. Sorry about that. Okay. Otherwise, wow, I'm like, that was lightning fast. I think that would have broken all the records. Here's our 5th polling question. Which areas of your business are priorities for technology improvements? Chris, I got you to crack up.
Yeah, that's pretty good.
Yes. Okay, that poll question's open. Financial management reporting, supply chain and inventory management, customer relationship management, human resources and payroll, or other. So we'll leave this open for about 5 to 10 more seconds. Definitely, and this makes perfect sense with our group today. Financial management and reporting, definitely, that's getting a lot of attention here, and that makes a ton of sense. So we'll close the polling question down here. Thanks everyone for responding, and you can see the results on the screen. So I'll close that down. Back to the slides.
All right. Andy, how do you ensure that those teams are the right skills to keep up with those ongoing changes?
Yeah, I mean, technology is not going anywhere, right? So you definitely want to make sure you have your teams that have it. You want your teams to have the necessary skills that they need to perform their job using the technology. And even for those non-techie people, like most everybody has a smartphone in today's age. I know there's a few people that still use maybe a flip phone or something, but there's a lot of technology have apps that can just be installed on a phone or a tablet, and those are typically very user friendly. You just have a couple of places on a touch screen that you have to hit, and you can move forward for those less techie people. So get information as as readily in front of people as you can with as few steps as needed to get that adoption.
Chris, do you have anything quick to add there?
Yeah, I think making it part of development for people is key. So that having it as part of development plans and understanding what individuals need to be able to bridge that gap is really important, I think.
Chris, from the technology standpoint, how can an organization build systems that are both adaptable to change and optimizing the peak for performance?
I think the two things for me that stand out from this are, and Andy mentioned it a minute ago, making sure that there's an opportunity for feedback as people are using it is really important, because that allows you to adjust the solution as you grow with it, and then making sure you stay up to date with the ways that technology is changing. If you utilize a system or a solution from an ERP perspective like NetSuite, or in other areas, the kind of core products, they are always developing their own technology. So making sure that you're aware of what changes are coming and how those might impact your business and help you stay up to date and at the forefront of that is really important.
Andy, I'm going to move this next one to you and let you kind of, how can the organization shift from that, chasing the quick fix, and build the strategies to deliver the sustainable and get that long-term value?
I think it goes back to what we talked about at the very beginning of the webinar today, aligning your long-term strategy with your long-term technology strategy. As long as those things are always aligned, then things will progress smoothly. I think another thing that comes to mind for me is adaptability. You have to be adaptive. Things are going to change. Technology is changing. We talked a lot about AI. It's been a big thing the last couple of years. It's more and more prevalent, but it's not going to stop there. There's going to be something new beyond what everybody's talking about with AI today. So be ready to adapt and adjust as time goes on.
Which that brings us to our final polling question.
Excellent. So we'll close out with our sixth and final polling question. That polling question is on the screen. What kind of support or resources would help you move forward with your ERP strategy? And I want to call out James in the audience. Thanks, James, for writing in about your goals that you're focusing on. James is working on building out a multi-sided AI platform. And it's really great to hear that we have audience members in our group today who are, seeing the value of this and working on it for their organizations. We'll leave this polling question open for about 10 more seconds, but while it's open, do you want to go ahead and just kind of get to our final closing items?
Yeah.
Very good. Okay, thanks everyone. We'll share those results quickly. Again, if you mention other, please go ahead and let us know how we can support you. And that technology roadmap is a place where guidance would be appreciated. And I know the goVirtualOffice team has a lot of resources on the technology roadmap. So that's great to see. We have about a minute left. I want to say a big thank you to Chris and Andy and Tila. Let's talk a little bit about that Boost forum so that we can let the audience know where to connect for additional resources.
Yeah, so at GVO, we have what we call a Boost forum. It's specifically for NetSuite users, but it's a free forum that is out there that you can join and communicate with other NetSuite users. You'll see some of our staff chime in from time to time, and our staff will also produce some content out there, do some workshops and town hall type meetings, things like that. As well. So if you are a NetSuite user, that's a great platform to connect with us and other NetSuite users that are out there.
Very good. Thanks, Andy, for letting us know about that. Well, I want to say a big thank you to goVirtualOffice and WorkHero for the content today and just talking to us about how to build the technology strategy and some of the key statistics and the key considerations to help that be successful. Really great hearing from all of you. Looking forward to future topics coming up. Definitely I'll keep your eyes out for a webinar with WorkHero where you can see WorkHero in person because it integrates directly with NetSuite, has some really amazing functionality, and the GVO team can certainly help be resources as you're looking at your data, looking at your processes and your systems. So thank you all so much. Tila, anything you want to add before we close out the program today?
I don't think so. Thanks everybody for joining.